Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to GhostGG. Today, we're reacting to the Outer Worlds 2 first look at the new flaw system. This literally just came out today, probably like 2 hours ago, which is perfect timing. Let's get into it.
With our exclusive IGN first coverage of The Outer Worlds 2, we talked about how it's changing up RPG mechanics and how expansive its open regions will be. But now we're going to have a bit more fun, because we're going to get silly with the revamped flaws system, where the game tracks your behavior and quirky habits to offer positive effects and some goofy negatives to take your playthrough in some wild directions. So I talked with game director Brandon Adler and design director Matt Singh at Obsidian about how the system works this time around, and we dug deep into a couple new flaws to see what we can expect in the sequel.
So for The Outer Worlds 1, we actually really loved the flaw system. It was a unique take on building your character through reactive events in the world.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And for The Outer Worlds 2, we wanted to kind of reposition it a little bit. We wanted to ask the player, do you want to opt in to this really cool experience, right? So the game is observing how you're playing the game. All of the actions that you're taking, all the patterns that you might be partaking in the game. And what we do is we observe that and then respond to you and say, hey, we see you're doing this thing. You want to lean into that? And if you do, you get some really cool bonuses, but it's going to take specific penalties as well. So that's a little bit of a change from the first game. The first game gave you a perk point, right, that you could spend however you'd like. We've actually paired our bonuses and our negatives together thematically for flaws in the second game.
Okay.
To really make it an interesting trade-off. Right? And you get to decide, is this something that I want to incorporate into my playstyle, into my build? Maybe it works really well. Maybe it's just a fun, wacky thing, you know? We want it to feel like this really reactive experience, but also something that can help you build your character. We always want you to be telling your story in an Obsidian game. And this is just another way where as you, the player, are going through and doing things, you get to incorporate things in real time into your character's story by taking these flaws. It's less abstract than like, oh, you're just going to get a perk point for it. And instead, we ask the player, do you want to lean into the thing that you're doing and get a real bonus for it, but have to maybe think about your gameplay a little bit differently now.
One that we're showing you today is Sungazer. So Sungazer is probably my favorite flaw, maybe because I helped kind of design this one personally, so I really do kind of like that. This one is it's a little ridiculous, but if you've been staring at the sun for a certain length of time, a bunch of times, the game notices that and says like, hey, you want to take the Sungazer flaw. What it does is it kind of messes up your vision a little bit. Things get, a lot more lens flare, a lot more blue.
Hold on. Okay. The Earth Directive found a flaw in you, Sungazer. You couldn't help but stare in the gentle glow of Arcadia's stars. Your eyesight has been permanently damaged, increasing your spread with ranged weapons, but you've created a lasting connection with daylight. Warning, once selected, flaws cannot be removed. Effect, permanently damage to your vision, plus 100% range weapon spread. Continually heal well outside during the day, up to 50% health. Oh.
And it makes it a little bit harder for
never mind.
on your weapons.
That's horrible.
But when you're outside, you can actually regenerate health up to about 50% health or so. I think it's a really cool flaw. It's a lot of fun. It's one of those things that, everybody's going to be able to take different types of flaws and be like, oh, I did this one, I did this one. I think it's one of those things you can just layer on top of any build, and I think it's going to be cool and fun.
I think Sungazer is actually a really good example of just playing with how we observe the player engaging with the world, right? One of the fun things about flaws in The Outer Worlds 2 is there's a sense of discovery to it. Something like Sungazer, it's not a traditional thing that people are just looking up in the sun.
Yeah.
So we don't expect like everybody's just going to get offered this because this is a clear player pattern. But it's a really cool sense of discovery when you see the game offering you something like this. So like, wow, they're looking at how I'm looking around the world? That's crazy. And then we respond to that. That's like where the fun sense of discovery of some of these flaws comes out.
I helped come up with the Sungazer flaw. It was actually kind of based on a bug. So we were doing a demo, actually the N-Ray demo that you guys are seeing in a different video. And when we were doing that, we had some weird lighting thing where we were seeing kind of like lens flares everywhere, and there was like weird bloom all over the place. And we kind of made a joke, like, wouldn't it be funny to have a flaw that was like astigmatism or something like that? And that's kind of what this grew out of. Is we were like, oh yeah, like what would we do if we were actually going to do this, and how would this trigger? And I think it was maybe Kyle Koenig or maybe it was Matt, you that were like, yeah, if you stare at like the sun too long, like this is what, and like, you know, that's how these things grow. They're very organic. And again, something like as simple as a bug that we see, like, wouldn't it be funny if that thing, and then we just kind of riff on that and kind of just grows into an actual feature that's in the game.
Okay, I really like this one. So we actually are showing you guys foot and mouth. This is one of those where we observe certain player patterns. Right?
Okay, foot and mouth syndrome. You've been racing through conversation and seem to hate the idea of having to talk with others. Your choice in conversations are now randomly picked for you after a few seconds, but you gain a bonus to all experience earned. Effect, 15% experience earned, but your choices are chosen for you.
We've got lots of really interesting, but sometimes dense conversations. And we notice some people, you know, they want to get to the action. They want to get in.
I do that sometimes. I feel like sometimes the conversation's going on for too long and I start skipping.
What we observe is sometimes people just rush through these conversations. And we're looking at that. So if you decide to kind of, you know, spam through conversations for a while, we'll give you foot and mouth. What foot and mouth does is it actually kind of, it changes the way conversations might play out in a really interesting way. You'll get an experience bonus for the rest of the game. So it's pretty enticing. But now every time you go into conversations, you're actually going to have a timer. We saw that you're rushing through this. Cool. You want to lean in? You better be picking fast. And so we actually have a timer going on in the conversation. And if you don't pick an option in that time frame, all right, we're going to pick for you at random. And so that can actually be really fun. It's an interesting and unique way to experience the game. We think it's something that maybe people will experiment with or even try on like a second playthrough just to see what kind of fun, wacky stuff might play out. It may hurt some relationships in your game if you're not careful, right? But that's
so
cool.
all they're telling me is don't skip the conversations in this game.
It's another fun way
don't
to
skip
get
through
a different
them.
Story outcome, because now you're playing it differently. Like, oh, what happens if choices are random? That actually might lead to some really fun and interesting things that you as a player wouldn't have selected naturally. So foot and mouth, really fun. It makes you kind of play the game differently in a way that we think is really exciting.
Yeah, piggybacking off of that, I actually had foot and mouth in one of my playthroughs, and I almost kicked out one of my companions on accident. So, you know, be careful.
Wow.
The things we do to make sure it doesn't break the game is, you know, we're just choosing things that are already there. It may be that you didn't want that particular thing to happen in something like this, but it's not going to really break the game because these are all options you could have selected anyways. It's just more like, well, we're railroading you into those things because, hey, this is what you wanted to do with this. But again, even with the foot and mouth thing, you know, you still have 15 seconds to choose. So even if you take this, you're still going to be able to choose, but, you know, there's a little bit of time pressure there.
Yeah, but
15 seconds ain't bad.
All of these, we really take like a fun first approach, right? We look at what would be fun from our perspective as an RPG player, as a game player. What do we think would be interesting? And then once we map that out, now we think about, okay, what problem space do we have, and what do we have to do to make sure that we don't just break the game for you, but we make an additive experience.
Yeah, so I mean, again, in the Outer Worlds too, it was important to us that when you make these selections, they matter. And to do that, we make sure that, like, hey, you know, if you're taking a flaw, it's gonna be with you for the rest of the game. Like, this is it. But we're very explicit about, like, here's how the game is going to be changing for you. Do you want to go ahead and take that on? You have to have like extra confirmations there to make sure you really, really want that. But again, for players that actually do want this, we want them to know, like, okay, cool, this is a new play style that you're going to kind of be playing through the game, using this thing. And that's just a more larger philosophy, general philosophy for the Outer Worlds to itself, right? Like, we want these choices to matter long term. And so this is just kind of showing that, right? Where you've selected that thing, this is just how it's going to be.
Brandon touched on how these are kind of optional things. You can take them or not. We make that explicit to the player. You can take one and play around with it and see if it's for you, and if you want to reload a save, that's totally fine. But we really do want these choices to feel impactful, and even to the extreme where, I know we're not supposed to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about flawed anyways. We actually have a flaw where you can take it, and now you have to take flaws. That's another way of just opting in. Like, we really want you to engage with the system. We don't
The
expect
flaw that
everybody's
forces
gonna
you to take
something
other
like that,
flaws.
but we
No
want
choice in
these
the matter.
choices to feel permanent and impactful to the player experience. It guides the story that you're telling. It changes the outcomes for you as a player, and it really does help you build that personal story for your character. That's just another way that we try to do it. Yeah, we actually really key into kind of all the common stuff, the common language we use for building the game itself, right? So we try to obscure this a little bit from the player, but it's a game underneath the hood, right? We've got an encounter system. We know when you're in combat. We know when you're not in combat. We know when you're talking to somebody. We have all of this kind of wide array of triggers that have to be there to make our systems go. And so the baseline is we look at that and see, cool, what fun can we have with this, right? What are the fun things that we're already tracking? Every game is tracking, because they have to for it to actually play out.
Yeah.
We're just keying into all of those.
You're just adding
cool
something
triggers
little
that
on
are
top of
already
it, you know?
To try and expose things to you. And if we need to, maybe we'll craft some unique stuff, just to make sure that we have some really fun stuff to play with.
Like tape scumming, maybe. Who can say?
Tape
Like Matt
scumming?
had mentioned previously,
Oh, no.
we're kind of looking at everything, whether that's in the game, even some of the meta stuff, right? And we have a lot of flaws. I think it's upwards of around 30 or so. We don't expect players to get all 30 in a playthrough.
That'd be
probably
wild.
Likely they're gonna see, somewhere between
That
5 and
sounds
10,
like
and maybe
a
players don't even
playthrough,
take
you
all
know?
of those, right?
All
'Cause you
30
may only
flaws
want certain
active.
ones. But again, we're watching everything. So again, we was kind of
You know,
joking about
they
the
should
tape
add, like, a
scumming thing
cheat menu.
previously, but
You know
we
how
can
games
track
used to
that.
have
We
cheat
can see
menus?
that
Most
a
don't
player's
have, not even
loading
most, like almost
constantly
none of them
over a
have them
certain area, those types of
nowadays.
things, and we do track.
But they
for
should
all
have like a
kinds of
cheat
stuff.
menu
Like,
where
you
you
had
can
even asked
activate all 30
previously
flaws and let
about,
people do a playthrough of that.
Technically, how are we doing some of that stuff? We do this stuff for achievements and other things as well, right? This is hooking into some of those same systems.
And one of the things that's really cool about the array of flaws that we've selected for the game is you may have, half a dozen or so in a playthrough, but if you go play the game differently, now you're going to get exposed to different flaws, which is really cool, right? So if you decide, okay, I'm going to do a second playthrough, I'm going to do it as a stealth-focused build, oh, now you're going to get maybe some things that relate to how you're playing the game differently, right? And that's, again, another really fun sense of discovery, because each time you play through, if you try to tackle the game differently, flaws will come out, based off of the patterns that you're playing through.
All this talk about flaws really got me thinking about my own flaws, but if you check out our videos on the game's revamped RPG elements and expansive worlds, I'd feel much better. And stay tuned for my talk with Leonard Boyarsky.
Alright, there we have it, the flaw system. So I don't really remember the flaw system from the first game. Like I said, it was a while ago, so I really just don't remember it. But this looks like it just adds to the RPG element of you do a certain thing multiple times, the game offers you a choice of adding yourself a flaw that would hinder your experience, but also you gain X amount of experience, or it gives you some sort of positive effect as well, right? It's kind of like, do you want to have this positive effect, but you also get this little bit of a negative effect as well, like this one, I think it was your spread is increased, but your XP is also increased, and then your entire experience of the game is like, no, sorry, you get to heal up to 50% in the sunlight, but you look like you have lens flare the entire time. Like, it's physically a hindrance, like it's harder to see, but you get to heal up to 50% without any kind of med packs or anything, right? Like there's that tit for tat kind of situation. But yeah, I can't wait to see more flaws. That's gonna be dope. Just like play the game organically, and the game's gonna be like, yeah, you've been doing this certain thing quite a lot. You wanna have this little positive effect, but in turn you get this little bit of a negative as well. And let's see if we pick them. Like I said, if there's a way to activate all the flaws in the game and have a playthrough, that would be a crazy playthrough. That'd be a nutty playthrough. But yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. I think this is the last of the Outer Worlds 2 videos for today. So I reacted to 3 of them today. So the previous 2, they came out during like last week or the weekend, and today's as well. There's probably going to be more in the coming days or weeks. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.